I chose the impossible. I chose Rapture. A city where the artist would not be.
First thing I remember is just that sense of scale and kind of spectacle as you're in the bathysphere coming down and you see it. And you really want to kind of be in there and looking for it. And I liked that there was this juxtaposition of it looked really cool and clean and spacey from the outside, and then you get in and you can still kind of get some of that, but it's mostly decay and kind of creepy.
The first thing I think of when I think of Rapture is just the look of it. From the minute you enter the actual Rapture itself, you was pretty clear you were going to be in a place like no other. This isn't another space station, another kind of sterile, futuristic complex. There's this crazy Art Deco style with this kind of Jules Verne, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea vibe to it, which was just so unique just from the get-go.
Everything was built there to be this ideal, perfect civilization, but then it all just kind of went to hell over time.
I thought it was really beautiful in a creepy way. The atmosphere was great in BioShock because like the music and the sounds, and it's not, I know it's kind of like not really survival horror in a sense, but for me it felt like it. But it's an interesting kind of underwater kingdom, and you're really curious to see what's gonna happen.
I get all kinds of claustrophobic when I'm moving through the city of Rapture. It's like every second I feel like the water's just gonna come tumbling through the glass. Yeah, and just it feels damp. It feels like, you know, they did such a good job with the atmosphere that, I mean, it really feels like you're there. So as far as the atmosphere and environment goes, yeah, the city of Rapture is pretty awesome to cruise through.
You know, it's this place that was built by Andrew Ryan to be this perfect sort of like laissez-faire, capitalist, ideal dream world where anybody could go and pursue their own business goals, their own like scientific research, this sort of you know, no rules, no restrictions setting. But then like over time it all went to hell. You've got you know, science run rampant, you've got people addicted to Adam, all this genetic research gone horribly awry.
An intruder! He's ugly! Ugly! Ugly!
It kind of felt like almost being on safari initially, because the introduction to the game had a cool mix of exposing you to stuff that was going to be a problem later on, but putting a barrier so you could kind of admire it for a second and get kind of creeped out by it. So if you remember when you were in the bathysphere for the first time, you saw Splicer, and it was kind of nerve-wracking because you thought for half a second it was going to get in and you were going to have to deal with it, and you had nothing to deal with it, so that was a problem.
Imagine Frank Lloyd Wright did Lost. So there's all these crazy creatures running around, everyone's gone insane in this undersea island that's absolutely like amazing and architecturally grand at the same time. So it was, the ecology is just, you know, these people are all underground, or not even people anymore, they've been in Lone they've been genetically mutated.
Yeah, it's definitely kind of give you like the land of the lost kind of feel, where you're kind of out of place. You kind of get to this place that seems like it's really kind of out of time, and that you don't belong there. And you know, and when you come up against some of the, you know, you see the Big Daddy and you see the little sisters, and they're like, you know, very alien to what we see in normal life. You know, the little girls with glowing eyes and the big crazy robot-looking things. You know, it's like.
Well, the interaction with the Big Daddies and the little sisters is what really made the thing so exciting for me, because I'm not an awful person, but I killed every single little sister in the game. And I have such a different experience, and I talk about this with my friends who saved them all, because like you feel really awful about it, but once you commit down a path, you gotta do it. So you enter this room with the little sisters and they're all terrified of you. And you enter a room with the Big Daddy who's just like a peaceful guy who's walking around and protecting this little child, and you have to initiate the attacks with him before he gets angry and charges at you, and then you kill him while the little sister's watching and she's crying the whole time, and you run up to her, and while she's crying you lift her in your huge paw. And
had the choice then and there to, you know, either save her, or, you know, basically steal the atom from her and, you know, condemn her to her doom, right? That moment, that choice, when you get to make it, it's so powerful. You know, it's like people had talked a little bit about that and like what it was like to hold that little girl in your hands in that game and what it felt like when you made that choice. But for me, it was like, I couldn't believe how powerful it was, that choice to be able to like, all right, she's either gonna live or die. And the fact that she, you know, looks like a cute little girl, yeah, that first time that I chose to save her, and I felt, you know, like literally, you know, morally rewarded basically for saving her.
But I mean, whenever I think about that game, it's the moment of harvesting the little sisters and hearing their cries and seeing her standing next to the big daddy, who she didn't see as a protector so much as a friend, and she's crying mostly for him being dead more than what's going to happen to her.
My favorite moment in the game, really the very beginning of it, when you land in the water, your plane crash lands, you're in the water, you see it sort of like flaming, and you get your first glimpse of that lighthouse in the background, and you slowly walk up to it. You have no idea what's going to be inside of it. And then you go down, and then bam, it's just this huge visage of Andrew Ryan, sort of that no gods, no kings sign in the background, and you're like, okay, this place is about to get really weird really quick.
But the one that just kind of stuck with me was when you were in that part of Rapture where it was like where the little sisters were being kind of kept, and you started to go into the rooms exploring everything, and you just start to see the environment that they were in and the drawings on the walls and just the little details that just kind of gave you that sense that things were really jacked up there for the kids. And that was just really creepy. And it was a little sad in places because I mean, you know, kids, they'll make the best out of anything. And so, you know, they're drawing little pictures and trying to be somewhat, they're trying to make it kind of livable for themselves.
Please, Papa Sucho, I don't want to go on the table.
I mean, I gotta say it's the Andrew Ryan turnaround. The part where, you know, you actually meet him and you discover that you've been kind of being used this whole time, and that, you know, the would you kindly.
Would you kindly?
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 Would you kindly head to Ryan's office and kill the son of a bitch?
And like when that whole thing kind of kicks off and that part in the story hits, like I think that was definitely one of the best surprises in the game in terms of storyline and like twists. I definitely was genuinely surprised, and like the fact that once they were showing, like, you know, you see it on the wall at the very first part of the game is like, you know, would you kindly, and like that whole idea that thing is like this weird mental like trigger that makes you do stuff.
It's really, really just amazing when you realize that you have just been this cog in this plot, this little, you've been manipulated this entire time.
For anybody like myself at the time that would run back, you know, they'll look at everything, and sure enough, everything kind of lined up just perfectly. And so immediately when that happened in BioShock, I was like, no. And I actually started a new game. and I started just playing for, you know, first couple hours just to see. And I loved it. I love the fact that they had been so deliberate about everything.
It's very rare a game has a kind of crazy plot twist. I mean, that usually try to have it, you can usually see it coming a mile away, but that's one of those rare moments where you're like, I did not see that coming at all.
That was great. I want to see that in more games, where it's like you think something's happening and then it turns out something completely different is happening. You know, I really like that.
What I'm most looking forward to in BioShock 2 is a less black and white distinction between moral choices in the game. Because in BioShock, it really just came down to, do I want to harvest the little sister? Do I not want to harvest the little sister? And it was just really black and white.
And I'd really like to see some more kind of like some moral choices where either it's not so black and white, or you have to give something up to be the good guy, you know, as opposed to it being a kind of a win-win.
I can tell you what I want to see in BioShock 2 is more of those moments that we had in BioShock 1 that were total surprises, that were total, you know, for lack of a better term, mind Fs. You know, that were just like, I can't believe this is really happening, stuff like that. And it's more, the first one was so original, it's just going to be really hard to top it, especially when it's a sequel, when it's in Rapture.
The thing that I really wanted to see in BioShock 2 is a prequel, actually, because I think the Rapture is just a fascinating place, and we see in its destructed form, and we hear pieces of what it was supposed to be, but I kind of really wanted to see that progression.
I really found myself taken with the backstory and all the context bits that you were finding. Like, I went back after I finished the game and I got all the audio diaries, and I really I listened to all of them in sequence and all that stuff because I like the whole story that they painted, kind of behind the scenes.
The one thing I keep on thinking about with BioShock 2 is like, what are they going to do with the story, right? It's like, I've heard some of the stuff, but I've honestly kind of been keeping myself a little bit away because I don't want to totally know everything before I get there, because that was definitely the discovery of BioShock, was one of the fun things about it. So in BioShock 2, really all I'm looking for is just more.
I hope that it keeps that atmosphere and that tension, because I think that is what makes it so special.
But of course, more of the same. If it's that quality, the same is also always good.